So, throughout our conversations, you may have heard me use the term eugenics. Okay. Now, eugenics really means that you can breed in or out the human qualities that you want to see. Okay. You can breed out bad qualities and you can breed in good qualities. Okay. Eugenics, or those who supported eugenics, they sincerely believed that people inherited mental illness, criminal tendencies, and even poverty, that these conditions could be bred out of the gene pool. Okay? So they encouraged so-called healthy, superior people to reproduce and discouraged those who were mentally challenged or those who fell outside of the social norm. They discouraged them from reproducing. Yeah. Fun fact, that was the purpose of birth control. That was the purpose of the birth control pill. Yeah. It was more than just to prevent pregnancy. It was to prevent pregnancy in women of color. It was supposed to be an alternative to forced sterilization. Now, eugenics was popular in America, in the United States, during the first half of the 20th century. Okay? The United States, along with Germany, were at the forefront of the movement to improve the human species through breeding. Yeah. Between 1934 and 1945, 350,000 forced sterilizations occurred. Yeah. And even after sterilization was um, removed or the laws were repealed in several states, if not all states, many states continued to sterilize residents until the 1970s. In 1907, Indiana became the first U.S. state to pass laws that allowed for forced sterilization for those who have been classified as unfit. And after that, 32 other states passed eugenic sterilization laws during the 20th century. Now, eugenics appealed to the upper class, the middle class, all of them being white. Okay? People like John Harvey Kellogg, yes, of Kellogg cereals. He organized the Race Betterment Foundation in 1911 and established a pedigree registry. I kid you not. His foundation, they hosted national convention conferences uh, on eugenics in 1914, 1915, and 1928. And we've talked about Clarence Gamble, right? You remember Clarence. Okay. Okay. He was a eugenics supporter as well. He also served as president and he served on the board of what would become Planned Parenthood. Yeah. Now, President Calvin Coolidge signed the 1924 Immigration Act, and that Immigration Act prevented people from coming to the United States by virtue of their nationality or race. What it did, it established quotas. Okay. I believe they fixed it to 100, no, yeah, 150,000. It was fixed in 1929. Okay. But this act established quotas. So depending on how many people of your origin, your nationality was in the country, that dictated whether you would be allowed in the country or not. In 1927, the Supreme Court said that forced sterilization of the handicapped does not violate the Constitution. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that it is better for the world that instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime or let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. Yeah. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that. In 1924, though, the ruling was overturned, but still, thousands and thousands and thousands of people were sterilized. So you remember that we talked about Puerto Rico. We talked about the birth control trials on Puerto Rican women. Okay? Now, in the 1930s, the governor of Puerto Rico, Menendez Ramos, he implemented sterilization programs for Puerto Rican women. So remember, we said that they already had a significant number of birth control clinics on the island. They were sterilizing Puerto Rican women before the birth control pill was tested on them. Okay. Now, Menendez Ramos, he claimed that the sterilizations were needed to battle rampant poverty and economic strife. Okay? But really, what it did was it was a way to prevent the so called superior Aryan gene pool from becoming tainted with Latino blood. That's all it did. According to a 1976 Government Accountability Office investigation, between 25 and 50% of Native American women were sterilized between 1970 and 1976. We talked about that. Okay. Um, all of this, all of this to maintain the white race. That's really what it was. That's really what it was. We'll talk about scientific racism, but essentially, scientific racism put white people at the top, black people at the bottom. So if you're weeding out those that you deem unworthy, those that you deem unfit, it's everybody beneath you. And everybody beneath white people were people of color. And that's what eugenics did. Eugenics justified sterilizing people of color so that they could not make more people of color, so that they did not outnumber white people, and so that they would die out. When we talk about eugenics, we always talk about Germany and World War II, but we don't talk about the United States and the 1930s to the 1970s. We don't talk about that, and we should.